Brilliant. Hi, everyone. This is Time to Talk. It's cognitive sports therapy, and I am absolutely delighted to have Nikki Baring with me here today from Optimum. I think we've planned to do this for a while, Nikki, haven't we? And I know that you hadn't been that well, so we kind of have been postponing it. So I'm really, really glad that you've managed to come along today and chat to
Thanks for inviting me.
So I think always with these kind of little chats, we try and I guess give people who are watching some takeaway messages, something that they can kind of learn from experience, and I guess a bit of a health feel to our chats. And I was really keen to talk to you a little bit about your experience with long COVID, because I don't know if people don't necessarily know you, but you have been out of work or not working at the way that you have been working for quite a long time now. So I said to you just before we came on air, I mean, I think from about March time, is that kind of right?
March, absolutely. I haven't worked since March last year.
And do you want to say a little bit about what started off at the beginning of all of this and your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually, because I work as a fitness professional and I teach classes and I, work with clients, exercising and movement is what I do every day. But just before all of this happened, because of all the lockdowns we'd had, I was actually, I think, at the fittest and the strongest I'd felt in a long time, because I'd actually had the time being stuck at home to do more. And so it came very out of the blue that I just suddenly one night didn't feel very well at all, and had lots of chest pains and ended up in A&E. And nobody was too sure what was going on. My heart rate was very high and my chest was very tight. And obviously they were checking to see if I was having a heart attack, first of all, which I wasn't. But after staying there for quite a few hours, they kind of sent me home, not really knowing what was up, but just said, you just need to rest. Maybe you're doing too much. Everyone kept asking me if I was anxious. And I wasn't before.
But I am now.
When you're in A&E in the middle of a pandemic, it does feel quite anxiety inducing. And then I kind of went home and rested and thought maybe I'd just been doing too much. And then I kind of essentially over the next month, I ended up back in A&E 3 more times with very similar symptoms. My heart rate was just very high and wouldn't go down, really tight chest. I just didn't feel quite right and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And they did so many blood tests to figure out what was going on and nothing was obvious. And in the end, on my kind of final visit, they said, it looks like it's something viral. And they check for COVID every time you go in.
It was negative, wasn't it? All the way through.
Always negative. Yeah. And then, so I kind of went home and then about a week, so I'd been kind of on and off in hospital for a month, and then I did develop a cough, which I only had for a few days. It was pretty nasty, but again was negative. So I don't know whether that was COVID. And then from that point on, I then just started to develop very weird symptoms that started happening in my body. So I was pretty tired, but I had lots of symptoms that were in my esophagus and in my throat, which made it very difficult for when I went to see my GP, because the symptoms that I was kind of describing didn't go together as they normally would. So it was really unnerving from having been so fit and healthy, and I've always been well. It was really unnerving to just suddenly feel slightly lost in my own body, that all this stuff was happening and I couldn't do anything about it, even with lots of rest. And so months and months went on, and I had all these weird symptoms, and with the throat thing was really horrible, and I just didn't know what was going on. And it wasn't actually until somebody recommended to me that I checked out a Facebook long COVID support group. They just said, just have a look in there, because I kept saying, no, it's not COVID. It's always been negative. It's not COVID. It's not COVID. And then when I looked in this group, and there were thousands of people in there, and they were all describing the symptoms that they had. It just matched everything I had, particularly this weird thing I had in my throat. I felt like it was closing up and I couldn't swallow. And so it was a kind of a sense of relief, but also, oh, oh no.
Now what? Yeah.
Yeah, now what? Because it was so new, and particularly a year ago, we knew even less then.
Yeah.
So, nobody really knew what not to do with that. So, it was just a case of, okay, well, I just every one day at a time is all I can do. And it's the thing I've found, and the thing I've learned actually with living with this for the last year, is that with long COVID, it is like this, in that sometimes you think, oh no, I think I'm really starting to feel better, and you'd have a week where you think, oh no, I think I'm okay, and then all of a sudden just another odd weird symptom would spring up, and you think, what is this, and where has this come from?
Sure.
So it's been hard, really hard, kind of mentally. It's been really hard to kind of keep going, because normally when you get ill, you're normally ill for like 2 weeks, and then you get better.
You can see the end point, can't you? Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing with this is that I didn't know when the end point was coming, and it just didn't ever seem to come. Well, it still hasn't quite got there yet. So it has been challenging, really hard. And the hardest thing for me is the inability to be able to exercise, because every time I tried to exercise, I didn't ever get that kind of high that I always normally get from exercise. I just suddenly felt like my body had just been sucked of everything, and I'd just be flat out. And I remember the first time when I thought I was okay, and I thought, oh, I'm going to try teaching a class to the ladies, and I really was so determined to do it. And I taught the class, and my heart, because I was getting lots of weird palpitation feelings, and my head was spinning, and it was awful. And then for about 5 days after that, I could not get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed, and I've got young children, and that's, it's just so debilitating. And then a few months later, I tried again to do a bit more exercise, and the same thing happened. But I had like flu-like pain, real pain in my legs, not the sense of, when you exercise and you get those DOMS, those muscle soreness feelings. This is something very different. So then I had to quickly adjust and think, actually, I'm going to have to take this much slower.
And it's amazing, because I think you've done a lot of this on your own. Obviously your background is in fitness, and you understand your body maybe more than other people who might be in the similar kind of position, but you've kind of found your way through it on your own, haven't you? That kind of pacing and tracking of what you can do and what you can't do, and backing off whenever you've had to.
Absolutely.
With very little support from the signs of things, as you say, your sort of GP's taking the stance that you're not unwell enough to go into a long COVID service. So you've just sort of been a little bit left with that.
And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that seems to be a big picture, that lots of people are just kind of left to figure it out by themselves. And I've actually ended up going and looking at alternative therapies to see if they can help me. So I've been having acupuncture, which I do find really helpful. I've seen a dietitian to see if she could help me with all the weird stuff going on in my esophagus, and had to look for myself. And then breath work is actually, that's the one thing that I did find almost instantly helped. With my head just racing about the whole thing, and this kind of desperation of, I so desperately wanted to be better. But actually, as soon as I started to get into breathwork, and I only intended to do it for 10 minutes every day, but gradually it got longer and longer, and I started to feel that actually it was really, really helping my nervous system. I haven't stopped doing that. And there's been maybe 1 or 2 days in the last year where I haven't done it. I definitely feel the difference.
You feel the difference. And from the point of view, again, of people kind of learning from this and having takeaways, is there a particular kind of style of breath work that you feel is most beneficial?
So I do a variety of different techniques, and just find that sometimes there's some that work better for me. I think it's probably personal preference, but box breathing for me, where you breathe in for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, for me, it instantly balances my nervous system, and I feel it within a couple of minutes. Everything just feels a lot better. The 4-7-8, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8, that's been really helpful. Alternate nostril breathing, which I know Lucy does in her classes because I've done it, where you breathe in through one, out through the other, and back again. So I kind of I vary it, and and I kind of was playing around. I also I've kind of taken a couple of courses in breath work as well, which has been really helpful. But one book I found that was really good is called Breathe, and by James Nestor, and it talks about lots of the different techniques and kind of why they're good. I found that really useful, so I tried using some of the ones that he'd suggested in there as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. And then you were talking a little bit about walking kind of being okay. I think you commented, I think I put a post a while ago about just that walking, actually, I'm finding is hard for quite a lot of my patients who've got long COVID. It's the thing we reach to because it's seen as being easy, but actually there seems to be something that's specific about long COVID that I find people are finding walking quite tricky. So I'm sort of, but that is absolutely what you're managing at the minute.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm actually, this week has been good for walking, but there's been, there were periods of months where I couldn't walk to like the letterbox, which isn't very far up the road, and back. And I remember going out once and I was so exhausted. I had to sit on the bench at the kind of, which is about 100 meters away from my house, and just sit there for about 15 minutes before I could find the energy to get back home again. Yeah. You think walking would be the easiest thing in the world, but it's not always. Isn't, no.
It's a little bit of trial and error, isn't it? And I think the thing we're learning about long COVID is it's different from one individual to the next. We try and keep putting people into categories of sets of symptoms, but actually it seems to be very unique. And I guess everyone's coming to like your starting point as someone who is so fit and active in itself will have a slightly different impact than you to someone who maybe wasn't quite so much beforehand. But I'm working a lot with kind of seated exercises, and kind of even swimming being a good option for some people. Again, I think it must be to do with the breath work and the regulation and the sort of what it does to the nervous system being in water as well. But I think the other thing that I was quite keen that we talked a bit about as well, because I think you posted a couple of days ago, was about what happened with your mum. It does link across to your COVID as well, but could you explain a little bit about what happened to your mum?
Yes. So my mum is super fit, healthy, and looks after herself, eats really well, super strong. Was doing all my classes in like the other lockdowns before I was poorly, and then in November she had a heart attack, which was pretty stressful for all of us. She's recovered and she's doing brilliantly. But I felt that it was really important to talk about, because the symptoms for women's heart attacks aren't always the same as men's. And so I just, I've spoken to her and she's happy to, for me to talk about it because she wants to help anyone else. So she was playing golf and she'd hit one of her best shots, she said, in a long time, which, she was very pleased about. But then she suddenly just got this pain, this real like discomfort between her shoulder blades.
It was in her back, wasn't it? It wasn't her chest.
So it wasn't like you see in the movies. It wasn't that. It was a discomfort. So it was something that she said she just knew something wasn't right. And she was out on the golf course and she was with a friend, thankfully, who said, let's walk back, so that was great that they did that. They went straight back. And then she just, I think, instinctively knew something really wasn't okay. And so they did call an ambulance, and because the ambulances were very busy, they didn't have one to send out initially. So she was kind of there waiting, but then just really didn't feel well. She just didn't feel well. Nothing going on, none of this kind of gripping tight chest pain. And then the ambulance did arrive, thank goodness. And that's when she suddenly felt very, very like she was going to be sick. So she said she got a really dry mouth and felt really clammy in her forehead. And and really thought she was going to be sick, which she wasn't. But that's then when she had the heart attack. And thank goodness at that point, the paramedics was there. They were there with the defibrillator. So they gave her CPR and used the defibrillator and saved her life. So the timing was crucial and worked out very well for us that happened. But I think, you know, had she, I've talked to her lots of times. We always talk, because I love to talk about women's health, about, you know, heart disease in women and how actually often it displays differently. So, you know, she has an awareness that she knows that heart attacks in women sometimes look different, and sometimes the symptoms aren't the same. We've talked about how sometimes it can be indigestion is one of the things, or jaw pain is something that you wouldn't necessarily know to look for. So,
and sometimes it's silent. So women sometimes don't get any pain at all, but they get that kind of sense, as you say, of it's impending doom is what it gets written about in textbooks and things like that from our end. So that sense that something is just not right.
Absolutely.
And then, and then that other thing, as you said, I think you were talking about, was that defibrillation being the thing that saved her. And, you know, that they are popping up around the country. But I think one of the messages I wanted to get across today from talking to you is just, if you're a part of a community and you don't have one, it's worth clubbing together or raising money to get one, because they are the thing that saves lives. And I think a lot of lay people are scared of them, but actually all the statistics say that it's not important that there's an ambulance person there, it's not important that there's a doctor there, but the defibrillation is the thing that makes the difference. And the way they work these days, I don't know if you've been trained in it yourself. Before that even, but they talk you through it. Even the machine talks you through it, so anyone can do it. So don't be scared. So if something happens and someone is feeling like that, you know, it's worth kind of trying to access a defibrillator, because, as you say, sometimes ambulances don't get there on time, particularly at the minute.
Absolutely. It's really important. I saw, you know, at the local Eddington, they've got one now that on the wall, and I was so pleased when I saw it. You know, I hope never to have to ever use it, but to know that there's one there, I think, you know, because it could make the difference for
they're turning up often. It's around schools or community centres or around churches. And I think most people who are thinking about getting one, they're encouraged to put it on the outside wall of their building, so that it's accessible not just by people who are inside the building, but also people who are outside the building. I think I meant to look before we had this chat. There must be a way of being able to see where they all are on a map somehow. I might have a look and put that on our space, and if anyone's wondering,
I think that'd be really useful for people to know, wouldn't it?
And then just, I mean, we're going to finish because it's over 15 minutes, but tell me a bit about what you're up to with Optimum, because I saw you're doing sort of mindful walking, wellbeing walks.
So I mean, it's because I can't physically teach and do any of my work as I'd like to at the moment, because I'm still not physically well enough to do it, but I'm just determined to do something to support the women that I work with. I have decided to put on wellness walks for the women in kind of the local village, to kind of, because walking, I can manage walking most of the time, and you know, it's not about the fitness of it necessarily, but there's something very therapeutic about walking. But it's just about trying to get some women to come together, just a bit of connection. It's been such a hard couple of years, and I ran one was it last week, and it was even better than I hoped it would be. It was just an opportunity for everybody just to connect and share their experiences. I wasn't sure whether people would just be there just to be together and to walk, but we walked together, and we then sat, there's a cafe, and everybody came and had a coffee, and everyone really opened up about their experiences. And so it felt very much like a real bonding, which I wasn't sure it would be that, but I just want to put that on, so there's a space for women to come and, you know, just feel like they're being supported, because that's one thing women are so good at, is supporting each other.
I was really, I loved seeing that you'd set that up, because I think, as you say, there's a massive need for it at the minute, and just to have that space. And you are still doing you can kind of still sign up to your online programs and things.
All my online bits are still on there. It's just the live stuff with me is just not quite ready to go, because my body's getting there, but it's just a bit slower than I'd like it to be.
We hope that you get there soon. But,
yes. yeah, I'm determined.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
And like I'm sure you're happy if there's anybody who's got any questions, maybe if I can send them on to you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and,
happy to.
Similarly, I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone's had anything that's come up from this video. So thank you so much, Nikki.
You're so welcome. So nice to talk to you and to see you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Take care.
and you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.